My dog.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Enlightening Your Way. I'm your host, Nancy Lombardo. We are airing live here on the Lilydale Assembly's Facebook page and YouTube channel. I'm a year-round resident here in Lilydale and the president of the Church of Living Spirit, which is an independent spiritualist church here in Lilydale. I'm a military veteran, retired police detective, fitness and yoga instructor, and wellness is my passion. This show is a combination of my many life experiences that will feature various topics and guests to help enrich one's mind, body, and soul on your pathway to healthy living. My Facebook page is Wellness with Nancy Lombardo, where my motto is protecting and serving your well-being. And I'm so happy to introduce our guest today, Cndy Kaza. Cndy
Hello.
is best known for her work on travel channels The Dead Files, The Holzer Files, and Ghost of Devil's Perch. Cndy has been extremely intuitive since early childhood and had her first experience with spirit searching for answers, days after losing a childhood friend in a fatal car accident. Cndy began searching for answers and reasons and became aware of her multifaceted abilities as a psychic medium. She is trained in the United States and England at the Arthur Findlay College, and she believes compassionately of sharing her gifts with others while opening up others the gifts they too possess, as everyone is inherently intuitive and able to feel spirit. I love that. And that's so true. And you can check out everything about Cndy on mediumcndykaza.com. Yay, welcome.
Yay. Thanks for having me.
You were just telling me you're in Philly.
I'm in Philly.
Yeah,
Yep.
I drove in Philly a month ago and the traffic was just like, whew, a lot.
It's less than New York City, which is the other place that I live. So I bounce back and forth. But yeah, no, it's crazy.
So the first question I had for you, because you made reference to it about having your first experience when you were very young, what age was that? And can you tell a little bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. So I was 10 years old, and there's a girl in my elementary school. Her name was Amber. She died in a car accident, and so after she died, I saw her standing directly next to my bed, full body apparition, as a 10-year-old. And I pulled the covers over my head and I pulled them back down, and she was still there. It was like really scary. And at that time I didn't know what mediumship was. I didn't know what intuition was. I'm too young. I have no reference to any of those things. I grew up in a pretty religious family, Catholic. So my mom was religious, and my dad's side of the family also very Catholic. My aunts were nuns. Like, that's how Catholic that side of the family is. So nobody talked about that sort of a thing. But when I was little, my mom would always say, oh, Cndy's really sensitive, or Cndy senses things about people. Like, I knew things about people that I shouldn't have known. And so I think my mom saw it in me, but again, it wasn't like I wasn't seeing spirits, full body apparitions all the time. That happened that one time, and then I could feel things, I could sense things about people. So anyway, yeah, so it created a lot of anxiety for me because I didn't understand all the energies that were coming into my auric field. I didn't know what was happening. So I think a lot of people can understand that if you have those experiences, it could be like this. You're like, what is going on? What's happening? So when I was 19, I met my first mentor, although I didn't know she was going to be my mentor. So she was, had a sign hanging out on her door saying, "Come in for a witch's spell." And I was like, who is this lady? And so her name was Bonnie. Her spiritual name was Raven. She died in 2011. God rest her soul. Like, she was the first person to look at me and say, "You're a psychic medium." And I was like, right. And I was like, whatever, crazy lady, and so slowly but surely, I would meet with her. We would have Caesar salads with chicken. It was like every Wednesday when we could. And she would talk to me about metaphysics and show me, the tarot cards. And it just started kind of getting in. And then in my, 20s, I really, decided, like, I need to figure this out. It's not going away. And then here I am. But it was very much I guess a struggle in the sense emotionally, because when you don't understand that you're a psychic medium, you don't know how to navigate that. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Right. And I look back now, and I also kind of see how I channeled it, because music was my life. I thought I was going to be a musician. So I found a way to kind of get it out. Right. But it was different. So music, I say music saved my life. Music was good to me. Music was a medicine for me, right? And then I found out that I could do readings and do things like that. So here we are. Yeah.
You were talking about being the 10-year-old and seeing your dear friend, and I instantly thought of the Bruce Willis movie. It's the
Oh, The Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense, right?
And the poor kid hiding and covering up his up, because that's got to be so scary at
Yeah.
10 years old to see that.
It was really, really scary. And you know,
Did you tell your mom?
I didn't tell anybody because
Did
I
you tell
think
anybody that you saw her?
no. And I look back and I'm like, I think I actually thought that that was a dream for a long time until I figured out what was happening to me. And then I was like, that actually happened. That was real, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I told my mom knew when I started telling people I'm a psychic medium, and when I told people or came out as a psychic medium, my brother then told me, well, I've seen spirits for a long time too.
Oh, and sometimes it is generational and in the family. So yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting.
Well, you must be psychic, because my second question was, what happened in your 20s that you realized your abilities were psychic medium? And here you just went to that.
Well, and I'll tell you another part of my journey, and this is just in being, transparent and honest and vulnerable. I drank for about 7 years, pretty, I'm a teenager to 23. I quit drinking. Thank God. I haven't had a drink since I was 23. 21 years yesterday was my without alcohol. And so I had to stop drinking, I think, to really sit with this ability. So everything happened after I stopped drinking, because I was clouding everything. I was trying to stuff it down. And then there it was when I stopped, but I had different tools to work with at the time, and then I had, I guess, more clarity. So
Absolutely.
that was part of my journey too.
Congratulations on that. And you'll laugh at me, because when I saw your Facebook post, because it was just so funny the way you posted it. So you had it in days, not in years. So I had to put my phone out, and I was like, divided by 365 equals, because I couldn't figure it out.
There's this app. It's like the sobriety calculator, but it's like you've saved $150,000 without. I mean, it's just something that's funny. It's just like something
very amusing, and all the calories of not drinking. That was very, very clever. Very clever. So, what age were you when you actually felt confident enough to put yourself out there and start doing this as a living?
I'd say 26. I think 27, 26, right around there, 27. So I was like, I wasn't like doing galleries at that age. That was actually around 28, but like I was doing private readings. I was doing a lot of automatic writing at that time. I was doing small things in metaphysical stores. And it wasn't really until after I'd spent a little bit of time training at the Arthur Findlay College, and I took some classes at Lilydale, that I started doing platform. So platform came, after I started doing privates and stuff like that.
Yeah, platform's a whole different ballgame. Did you do a lot of the fairs?
I did psychic fairs, which like I tell my students, I'm like, look, if you're going to do psychic fairs, make sure you don't do too many readings. Cause I would do psychic fairs and do readings for 8 hours and like not be able to find my way home, because my brain I was so out of my body, So, but I think because I'm ADHD, platform is great because it's like quick and there's spirits here and I'm moving around, and it's like, it's easier for me because that's my brain works that way.
When I know you said you were a musician at heart, when did you get into your spirit art?
That came after automatic writing. So 2008, 2009, right around that time. So it was like a few years, right around 2009, because I was doing a lot of automatic writing, and then I got the intuition to pick up paint and to just move my hand. And then I started doing it and faces started showing up, and there were moments where I was like, oh no, it's happening. I'm finally losing my mind. Now it's like who are these faces coming in? I knew it was from spirit, but it's still like, I don't know. It's like these stages of the progression of mediumship and new things that come in, and trying to navigate that space while also being not growing up or living even at that time in an environment where that was something normal at all, and having to like feel all those feelings of people are going to think I'm crazy. I'm drawing these weird faces. So, I mean, yeah, the whole journey has been really interesting.
I love your artwork. Let me tell
Thank
you
you.
that, first of all. And whenever you post something, you're right, there's so much in there. I'm sure you see something different every time. Do you use this for yourself, or do you use it as part of your readings, or do you combine them?
Well, for me, all of it. I just started doing commissioning art, and it's the first time I've really like put myself out there really in a bigger way to create pieces for people. So what I'm doing is creating a piece for somebody, and then whatever kind of comes out, I don't see it and then create it. It just comes out. Then I go back and I, feel into what is this showing us? Like, what is it showing me about this person? What can I get through automatic writing about this piece, since it's an extension of automatic writing? So I'm going to use the automatic writing for, the readings. So yeah, I mean, now it's for other people. A lot of it's been for me. It's really feels good to just be able to sit in that space with spirit. Again, like it's hard for me, really, because I'm ADHD, for real, to sit in meditation. So like even creating the art is like sitting in the power for me, right? People
Right,
say,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
so for me, that is sitting in the power, because I'm blending with spirit. It's active meditation, active sitting in the power. And so it's all of the above. I mean, it's a space where I really can let go, and especially even in automatic writing, where I'm not in the way as much, which feels really, really good.
The hard thing to do to get ourselves out of the way sometimes.
It's really hard. Yeah.
The learn thing for sure. Is that watercolors you use, or is it oils?
I use alcohol ink. So I didn't even know what alcohol ink was
I've
until,
never heard of that.
yeah, it's super interesting. I was using charcoal, and I was using marker, different things. And somebody on Facebook recommended that I try alcohol ink. I was like, what's that? And so I went to, she said alcohol ink and Yupo paper. And I was like, I don't know what either of those things are. So I went to Blick, which is like a art store in New York City. And I found the two things. And then I just started using it. And it was, for me, like so in flow. And then like the good thing about it is it dries very quickly. So I can make a lot of pieces very quickly, and they dry, which I love. And you can just give it to somebody in 15 minutes, it's pretty much dry. So that's been really fun to explore those inks. And just on a, something that comes in on a side note is my husband and I have, spent some time sitting with the Native American church and people from, indigenous cultures. And I was talking to Steve about that, and he was my art, and he said, you're using alcohol ink, and alcohol is a spirit. And so you have to respect the spirit of the alcohol. It's different than the spirit of water.
Oh, that's interesting.
So even thinking about those things, like honoring the spirit that comes in the ink and in the blending solution, and looking at everything that has a spirit,
Yeah, I love that. I mean,
and I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm like, of course I picked alcohol ink.
It actually goes perfect. It goes perfectly, I think.
It's really funny, yeah.
So I know we talked a little bit before we went live, but can you tell us how you first heard about Lily Dale?
Oh, how did I first hear about Lily Dale? Who told me? John Holland told me about Lily Dale. So I knew John Holland. I've known him since I was 23. John knew me as a musician. And so it's so funny because I grew up in New Hampshire. John lives in New Hampshire.
Yep.
At the time, I was recording a little EP with this producer, and the producer's girlfriend was best friends with John, and we just somehow crossed paths. And then when I was like, I got to figure this out, this mediumship, I asked him, and he told me about Lily Dale. That's how I found it.
Oh, that's way cool.
Mm-hmm.
So did you come here shortly thereafter?
Let's see, what year was that? Let's see, it took me a while, I think, because that was in, I think, 2005 that he maybe 2004 or 5. So it took me a little bit of time, because I got to Lily Dale in 2009. I think it was 9. I don't know. It's hard to do the math. It's like right around that time. Yeah.
Did you come here for classes, or were you already working, or came here to
I
do
came
classes?
for classes. So I was already doing some readings, but I came to see John was doing a dem with Sharon Klingler. And so
Uh-huh.
that's how I got in. I was already doing private readings and working in like doing some things in metaphysical stores. And then when I came and saw John with Sharon, and then I saw her, I was like, whoa, what is this? And then Sharon, I went up and spoke to her after, and she was teaching a class. So she used to teach like it's like a week-long intensive every year, or 5-day
Yeah.
intensive with our friend Linda, who passed away. She would do it at Linda's house. And so I started going to that, and then things just kind of unfolded from there.
So what was your first impression of Lilydale?
I love Lilydale. I love it. I was just like, I was just blown away that there was a place where, so many mediums lived, and learning about spiritualism and seeing all the services and the classes, and, just feeling like I could belong, because everybody understood me. That
Mhm.
was a real gift. The fact that, visiting mediums can go do practice demonstrations at the services. It was a huge part of my development as a platform medium,
Yeah.
because without Lilydale, I don't even know. I mean, I just really, I would go in the summer and sometimes stay for a month and just do I had my bicycle. I'd be like riding from one service to the next to get on, you
I
know.
love that. Yeah.
I learned how to work fast, because, as you know, you have to work fast. I learned a lot. I'm so grateful for Lilydale. Honestly, it's just really a huge part of my journey.
Yeah, I love that. I know you're a world traveler for sure. How would you compare the sacredness of Lilydale to some of the other places you've been in the world?
I mean, it has a vibe, it has an energy. You walk in and you can feel it. You can feel the spirits there. You can feel the psychic imprinting. It has its own unique vibe, right? And energy. So it's like, some of the places I've been in, let me think of one. There's a place in Indonesia that I went to not too long ago called Gunung Padang. It's an old megalithic site. Like, this is a little bit different, because we're talking like thousands of years, right? But
Right, yes.
it's like, but when I went there, I was like, I could feel it. Like, I could feel the history, and just feel the energy of all of the prayers and all the things, and the things that had happened there, people doing ritual there. So it's like that. When you walk into Lilydale, you can feel it.
Yeah, I mean, people sometimes don't understand what they're feeling. They come through that gate, they don't get, especially people have never been here before.
Yeah. Yeah, no, right. They're like, what is this? And
Yeah,
it's
you're
really
exactly right. They're like,
Mhm.
"What is this?" And they don't know.
Yeah.
So we were talking earlier about your schedule is just relentless. I mean, you are doing dem after dem after dem, and state after state after state. You are packed full. I was wondering if there's any particular story that has touched your life in all these things that might stick out that you might want to share.
Mm. Oh my gosh, I don't know. That's so hard, because it's like, which direction do I want to go? And yes, it's like my schedule is crazy. Sometimes I'm like, how am I even doing this? And then, as I was saying before, I was like, oh, 2024, I'm going to rest more, which is not happening. It's just like, but I love this work so much. So it's like, I think when you love what you do, you find the energy to do it. It's just kind of like there. But burnout was also real, so I'm aware of that. But
Yeah, yeah, totally.
man, it's like, what is okay, this is a story that I like to share, because it really helps me understand the soul or consciousness, or the ability of the soul or consciousness to travel right across time and space, right?
Okay.
So I was doing an event in California. This is in 2013 or 2014. Okay. And I was on the platform, and I was feeling connected to this guy who felt to be in his 20s, and I was seeing him being a drug addict, and he's running from the police and getting in trouble, and he's talking about, like, the women and all this stuff, right? I'm like, oh, this guy's a character, right? And then I said, I'm hearing the name Garrett, so that's the name I heard connected to this guy. So I went to this area in the audience, and I said, I feel like I'm over here, and this woman raises her hand, and she said, she said, Cindy, Garrett is alive. She said, Garrett is my friend who I had lunch with today. So, it's the same day she has lunch with Garrett, then that night she's at the event, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And she said, the guy you're talking about, that you're describing, is Garrett's best friend, but he's being taken off of life support tomorrow at 1 p.m. So he wasn't dead yet. He was still alive.
Oh my goodness.
But what was interesting is the I felt very much, because, he was like already out of his body, but he was still, still alive. But to know that he's still on life support, right? He's being taken off, but he's coming through, and he was making amends, apologizing for the things that he had done. And this is before he's even technically clinically dead. And that really helped me to understand, we're not separated from anything. Like, everything is all around us, right? And to be able to connect to that guy was really, to me, interesting. We can connect with people in comas, but it felt very much like he was already on the other side. Maybe he was, maybe because he's brain dead, right? Like, and so there's a lot that we don't understand or can't completely explain. We don't have the language for it. We don't have the words for it. I find that when I, try to describe my beliefs of the afterlife and all the things, I'm contradicting myself, right? Because I don't have the language to completely describe it.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I get that for sure. Yeah, there's that in-between period too, they always say. So, yeah, there's so much we don't know, but one thing, like you said, is for sure, is that we are all interconnected. Here, there, everywhere, interconnected.
Yeah.
So I know we were talking briefly about the shows you've done on the Travel Channel. I was wondering, all the people, the workers, how open were they to this kind of work?
To mediumship? You mean the paranormal people?
Yeah.
It's so funny that you asked, because this is a really good topic, Nancy. It's really interesting. It was always so interesting to me. And it was a reason why I never thought I would do paranormal TV in my life. I just never thought that I would do it, is because so many paranormal investigators don't like mediums. And I'm like, what do you, I don't get it. You want to beep from a gadget instead of like a person that can talk to spirits? It's interesting, right? So I just kind of didn't really go that way. It was really, the fact that I did paranormal TV was me. The reason I did it is because I was offered a show called the Holzer Files. And when the show was pitched to me, it was pitched this way. Hans Holzer, was a very famous paranormal investigator who also was an academic. He had a PhD, and he loved mediums, trance mediums specifically. I'm not a trance medium, but he believed that mediums were essential to any sort of a paranormal investigation. And he would bring a trance medium to every one of his investigations. And he was thorough in documenting what took place. He would record things. Sometimes he had video. So the production company had partnered with Hans Holzer's daughter, and so they had access to all of the old case files. Now, the premise of Holzer Files is that we were going to reinvestigate locations that Hans had been to in the 50s, 60s, 70s, right? And I was like, interesting. So now I get to go see, am I picking up on the same thing that the mediums from 1950 and 60 or 70 are picking up on?
Yeah.
Right? These trance mediums, right?
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't give me any information prior to going. I didn't know where I was going, the name of the location. I would do my walk and, see what came through. And it was just like, for me, really interesting to see that we got almost everything the same. There might have been some things that were different, or I was adding on to a part that they hadn't quite completed. And so the things, the pieces that the mediums were getting from the past and from present was super interesting for me. I mean, I thought like that show to me, I love the history of it. The locations were interesting. So that was Holzer Files. And Dead Files, in that show, I was partnered with a retired New York City homicide detective who I love. His name's Steve. He's a skeptic, but he's super sweet. He's a skeptic. But it was fun. It was fun. And so, but for that show, it was great because it was just me doing a walkthrough. So I wasn't with a paranormal investigator. I was just walking through. And so that show was different. but I have found there's a weird thing in the paranormal community. It's like, and I remember somebody saying, Cindy, I want you to use this spirit box. I'm like, but I'm a human spirit box. I don't want to use your spirit box.
Yeah, what's a spirit box?
Well, when the two things come together, it's really magical. Like when you can have intelligent stuff going on with the EVPs or with the devices, when I can say something out loud and there's a response from a device in time that nobody is even near the device, that's super interesting. Mm-hmm. So I think that there really is a place for the two things to be really, really to do really cool things, right? But, yeah.
So were you able to make any people on the set? I mean, I know it takes a whole lot of people all over the place to make this happen. Believers from your abilities?
I hope so. I mean, the people told me that's the case, but I don't know. I mean, I think so, but it's like also, I have a hard time like talking about it that way. Like I made them, but I think I cracked the door for sure. Did I freeze?
No, yeah, you're back. Yeah. You're back.
So yes, I was told that happened by one of the owner of the production company. He was like, people called and said, "Oh, I thought this was all BS, and now I don't think it's BS." You know, so. But at the end of the day, I was going to say, at the end of the day, it's like my job, right? I've had to really like get right with this. Like my job is not to turn skeptics into believers, because if I live in that space, it is like, oh my God, it's so not in presence. It's like in fear, it's in scarcity, it's in I've tried to really stop doing that, especially after all these years of doing live events where, you know, sometimes the pressure, if you let it be that, like if that's your goal, the pressure can be crushing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I just had to really get right with myself and be like, wait, that's not what this is about. I don't need everybody. I don't need to have that idea in my mind. Like that's my job. My job is to show up and be present for the spirit world and to hopefully be, I guess grounded and open and connected enough to help whoever I'm meant to help on this side and this side. And so that's where I'm at with that.
And to trust.
Mm-hmm.
Trust. Well, I know I was looking at your website, and it's all about, you know, you do tout yourself an evidential medium, because if you put the evidence out there with people, in my opinion, it's just undeniable. You know, that's why we're, you know, evidence, because when you put stuff out there that they have no clue that you could have ever known that, where's that come from besides spirit?
I know, it's really interesting. And there are people that are really just so resistant. Like you could go, this happened to me where I went to this guy and I like named his dad and named like 3 other people in his family. And he still was like, I don't know if I believe in this. Like what? Like, it's like, and at that point you're like, why do I like, that's what happens when you making somebody a believer. It's like, and I've also, you know, the spirit world is super intelligent. I've learned to not demand things from the spirit worlds because they will teach us a lesson, right? So this is an example for any like mediums out there that are or professional. I was like, before a live event, I was like, spirit worlds, I want you to give me first and last names. Like, that's what I want. I'm like, I'm demanding that I know what's best, right? So it's the last contact of the night, and I hear a first and last name, and I see this little boy, and I see that he dies from like anaphylactic shock or something. He ingests something. I get a first name and a last name. Nobody raises their hand. I'm like, oh,
that's right? The worst. Yeah.
And I'm in front of a lot of people. It's like 300 people. I'm just like in silence, and I was just like, and I was like, oh my God, I can't. Nobody's saying anything. And then I was like, are you sure nobody knows anything? So finally, these 2 women in the back, and this is after, you know, oh, look, balloons. So these two women in the back, they both raised their hands together. They both, and they're way in the back. And I said, okay, do you understand what I'm saying? They're like, well, maybe, kind of. And I was like, oh my God, at this point I was like, well, it's not kind of. Long story short, they were pediatric ICU nurses. And they were like, well, we are not really supposed to say because of HIPAA or whatever, because I got a first and last name. If I had one or the other, it probably would have been fine. And
right.
So I was like, oh, the spirit world taught me a lesson. Like they were like, you want a first and last name? We're going to give it to you. And you're going to see why it's going to make your reading more difficult in this moment. So just let go and trust that we're giving you what you need to be given for the recipient.
Yeah. It's so hard to do, isn't it? It's just so hard to do, to let go, like you said, and trust. Especially the off the wall things, and you don't want to say it because you're afraid that you're not going to get that hand rose. And yeah, it's just
I know it's right. And it's like, and it's, I don't know. It's like, it's a daily reprieve, right? To just be like, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. Some days are better than others.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. So what would you say to people that might be afraid to explore their own abilities?
Well, look, it's like, I would say this first. Everybody comes in with the ability to feel these energies. Everybody has the ability. I say, not everyone can play the piano. Not everybody's going to be a concert pianist. But I think the idea that people are fed is that, oh, it's only a special people have this, and it's very rare. And, so then when people, I think maybe are thinking, I want to tap into this, but I've never had it before. Oh, maybe I'm going crazy. That's the biggest fear. People are so afraid that if they start to feel these energies, then they're going to be crazy, or somebody's going to call them insane. Right.
Yeah.
And then that's really, it's legitimate, because look at how, these gifts are portrayed, in movies where it's really scary, or it's a demon, or it's whatever. Then you have a lot of people that have been raised in religions that have told them that it's evil. So you have all these things that have been piled onto people for a very long time, right? So I would say first, trust that you have this ability. Trust that it will show up in a way that is good for you at the moment. It might be subtle at first. It doesn't have to be a big thing, right? Maybe it takes time. Be on the journey. Be open to the journey. But I also think that being able to sit or find some sort of a meditation or prayer or whatever to connect is really, really important. And if somebody has a big opening and they're like, oh no, what do I do? Find a mentor, find a teacher. Like, what are your goals, right? Because I personally think for me, having a mentor, having different mentors was crucial to my development as a medium, like so important. Because the other thing that I tell my students too, especially when I teach beginners, is like, the energies and the information can be very subtle. And if you don't understand how the spirit world communicates, you will constantly miss it.
Oh, that's very good.
Right?
You're exactly right about that. Mm-hmm.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And when I'm working, everything that I do, I look at as evidence. Like, maybe I'm scratching my head or doing this and like, wait, why am I doing that right now? What is spirit trying to show me? And, a goal of mine, which I think would be so beautiful, is to be able to walk so blended in both worlds that I could navigate both worlds all the time without being like super ungrounded, which I'm definitely not there yet. But I think that's, some people can do that. They really can navigate those spaces with grace and because everything is spirit. There's no separation. We're not separate.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about what you were saying, and a question came to me. I was wondering about full circle with your family, because you said your family was very religious, very this, very that. When did they finally come around and completely embrace what you were doing? Or have,
I don't think that they fully
have they?
No. My mom passed away in 2013. She was open enough to it. My aunts that or they're nuns, they're not, nuns any longer, but we do not talk about what I do at Christmas. They're not like, Cindy, how's work? It's like, most of my family pretends it's not happening. Although I will say my dad is 83. He came to see a demo of mine not that long ago. It was late last year. And he was like, because he's a recovering Catholic, so he doesn't know, he's scarred by the nuns in the Catholic Church and Catholic school. But he was like, I'm really proud of you and your mediumship and everything. And that was huge, you know?
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the whole point of us trying to do these radio shows and talk to mediums, to dismiss the stigma of it and to try to see the realness of it, and to try to get people to see, like you said, the trueness and the beauty of it. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so important.
And something else I want to add to that too is like, for people to really understand that tapping into their innate ability to connect to these energies does not have to look like their future is going to be that they're a psychic medium doing readings, because this energy is channeled in so many different ways. Maybe you're a teacher, maybe you are a therapist and you suddenly find the right words for somebody. Maybe you're an architect and you channel this beautiful building. I mean, this everybody has this potential to use the energy of the spirit world to I don't know, better their lives, even enhance what they're already doing. Because I think some people think, well, now I have to quit my job and be a psychic medium. Like, not necessarily. You can integrate your mediumship and your intuition into the job you already have. It
Right.
takes a lot of people to make the world go around, thank God,
Right. Yeah. Well, you understand, before I came to Lilydale, I never understood that that's what I was doing in my career. So I never put that together. And then being here and learning in classes and learning that I can see it, how that was all integrated. I just didn't see it at the time. So,
yeah, and it was like that for me with music, right? I didn't even understand that that was a channel for me, that it was, a lot of it was coming from spirit. So
yeah, luckily we have a lot of classes we're offering this summer, that beginning mediumship, or even just if anybody's interested in just understanding how it works, what's about. There's many classes we have going on this summer that they'll be able to come in and do that. So that's a good thing.
yeah.
So I'd like to know, what is one of the most important things you feel that you've learned on your spiritual journey?
Oh no, that's such a hard question. No, it's
Well,
like,
because you've traveled so many places too.
I have to. Okay, I think it goes back to there's no separation, and where I'm at now is that I believe that past, present, and future are all happening right now, and that we can access all of these spaces. So when we talk about layers, dimensions, the other side, like it's still, I'm contradicting myself, because if everything is happening now, then how are there layers? It's all here, right? So I am aware that I'm in this existence right now of duality, and my language comes from this existence of duality. But I think the reality of it is that if we really got to the core of it, of the presence of the no separation, then there is no duality, right?
Right. Yeah. Right.
And I think by understanding that there's no separation and that all these things are happening at the same time, if I really sit with it and think about, like, people will say, well, what do you think about past lives, Cndy? Like, what do you think about past lives and reincarnation? So I used to say, yeah, no, I believe it. Can I explain it? Not really. I can't explain it, but I believe in it. And now my answer is a little bit different. It's like, of course, well, like, every soul is unique, right? Every soul has a uniqueness to it, but it also has the essence of every other thing that ever has been and ever will be within it, if you know how to look at it. So the better question is, why are you remembering this past life now? What is it to teach you? What is the lesson in it? Or why is that part showing up? Because of course you could be all of the things from the past. We all were, but why is that showing up for you now? Because all of these even with the spirit world, this is another thing. As a medium, this has been such a great lesson for me, something to think about. It's like, when I'm connecting to a soul, right? Why am I connecting to that aspect of that soul, that part? Because there's a co-creation in that experience. Like, there's something that I can learn from that. We're working together. So yeah, it's again the no separation has been helpful, and it also helps me even with people, right? When you're working with people to have more compassion for the spirit world, for people in the living, for myself,
Mhm.
right? Because we're
Yeah,
all
so
we're
important.
all part of the fabric, right? We're all like Ram Dass said, we're all walking each other home, right? That's like
Mm, mm.
it's really deep, right?
Yes,
That's
yes.
what we're doing. We're walking each other home, um,
Uh,
and home inside of ourselves too, right? That peace.
the Emmy Check-in that lives here, you probably have met
I
her.
love Emmy. I used to stay at her house a lot when
That's
we
one of her favorite things is we're past, present, and future. She says that very often. We're living it all. We're living it all at
are.
the same time. And she'll always say that. And at first I couldn't even wrap my mind around it because it's just so big to think about it that way, you know? But
Yeah.
when you break it down, it's like, I think you're right. And
Mhm.
when you see how quickly time is just like, time is just, you can't hold it.
No, it's right, and it's something that is created to right. We're here, we're learning lessons, karma, all that stuff, right? But there's this guy. I always say his last name wrong. It's Matthias De
Yes,
Stefano.
yes, yes. Uh-huh. You're
Yeah.
saying it right.
So he was talking about the idea of dimensions, right? Because it's like, well, what dimension is this, and this dimension here, and he said something really interesting, and it stuck with me. He said, there aren't like dimensions necessarily. He said everything's a frequency, and we're able to shift our awareness to a different frequency. So we're not going anywhere, right? We're still here, but we're shifting our awareness to a different frequency. And it was interesting because years ago, and I think 2008, in an automatic writing I got, it said
Mhm.
everything is sound. And I was like, what do you mean everything is sound? And then he's like, oh, it's all a frequency. And I was like, that's interesting. What does that look?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, so we're thinking about like, oh, it's like everything is a sound, everything's a frequency. Maybe there's different orchestras playing right beside us, and we're tapping into the different, the parts. So I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know if you like to talk about, I particularly don't like people to ask me like, well, what do you see yourself in 5 years? I like to do day by day because I lived my life so
Yeah.
long like that day by day. But is there anything you're wanting to incorporate within the next, I don't know, that you haven't yet? Is it?
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, look, I love traveling to different countries, different
I like to
cultures.
travel through you.
Oh, please, you can travel. You can live vicariously through me. But
Exactly.
I really am passionate about exploring mediumship cross culturally because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Uh, it might be called something slightly different in one place, or it might be a different religion that calls it something different. But I mean, so for example, I spent a lot of time in Indonesia, and it's been interesting because I've worked with other mediums, and so the belief for some of my friends that live in Indonesia, like they're connecting with jinn because they're Islamic. It's like the Muslims believe that there are these creatures made of smokeless fire. They're called jinn, right? And so I believe I'm connecting to the human soul. They believe they're connecting to these jinn, but we're both getting the same exact information,
How
right?
crazy is that? Yeah, yeah.
And same information. They're like, no, it's a jinn. I'm like, no, it's a human soul. And I'll say, well, how did I know that? I didn't know anything about that person. They're like, no, there's a one particular kind of jinn that's with a person for their entire lives. They're the blueprint of that person. It's a jinn. So we're both getting the same information, and also understanding different ideas about life and burial. And I just spent some time in Toraja, Indonesia last year. It was on my bucket list, Toraja, for 10 years to go visit with these people. Their culture is so fascinating to me. And there's a lot of, they've been Christianized by the Dutch, and there's a lot of bleed through of Western, kind of beliefs in there. But if you really can find people to teach you about, traditional Toraja belief, it's really fascinating. So one of the beliefs is that after somebody dies, they're not dead until they actually have their funeral. And the funerals are elaborate. They're really expensive. I think, what was it? The minimum amount, this is what I was told, on the low end, $50,000 US.
Oh my goodness.
So
Woo.
imagine that. Now that's now, right? Because they have all these different things that they have to do, and a lot of people can't afford to have a funeral, like, because it's too expensive. So they will keep the bodies of their loved ones in their homes and bring them water and bring them food. They have some sort of a mummification process, but I couldn't quite, nobody was really telling me what it was. It's not like but anyway, you go in, and I was able to go to two different families, and they both had the bodies in the homes, and just to kind of talk to them about that aspect of the culture.
Right.
And it's really, really interesting. So I would love to be able to, like, split myself or clone myself and go back to school to get the degree in cultural anthropology. It's like, I've really thought about it, and I'm like, I'm too tired. I'm in my 40s. I don't have time for this. So
I put a Facebook post the other day thinking about what you were saying, that it was a tree that looked differently from two different days, and it said we all can look at one thing and see it differently. And that's kind of when you're talking about that. It's all our interpretation and how we see it, but we all come to the same conclusion, it seems like, somehow, some way, for sure.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting, and I think it creates, I don't know, to be able to really acknowledge that and to have respect for other people's viewpoint, ideas and beliefs. And I found that a lot of the people are very threatened by other people's ideas of the afterlife and belief systems. And then when you ask, like, well, why are you threatened by that? And it just comes down to really the understanding that humans, our desire to belong is such a driving force in all of our cognitions and behaviors, even unconsciously, that another belief system is like, oh, well, I don't belong there, so that must be bad, because that's scary because I don't belong there, right? And it's like leaving space for everybody to belong and being okay with that, right? It's
I guess that's what I love about spiritualism, us being accepting of all religions.
Yeah.
And it's just, to avoid any of that, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you've come such a long way from your 20s when you first were searching, because you talk very insightful and full of wisdom. And I can only imagine you're going to keep growing the further you go. And you're just lovely to talk to. And I so appreciate that you've been here this evening to talk to me and have this conversation, honestly.
Yeah, anytime. I
totally enjoyed it.
Thank you, Lily Dale. I love Lily Dale so much. So
we love that you love Lily Dale. I love that. Well, thank you, Cindy, for being here. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I'll be back again in 2 weeks for another episode of Enlightening Your Way. Please check back on this Facebook page for everything that's happening in Lilydale. The Facebook page, the website, it's all be on there every day. Please like my page, Wellness with Nancy Lombardo, on Instagram, nancy.k.lombardo. My name is Nancy Lombardo. Thank you so much, Cindy. I am protecting and serving your well-being. Thank you so much, everybody. Good evening.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.